Welcome to Garden Plants with Jim Putnam. Let's talk baby blue ice Chamaecyparis. This is a really cool plant. This is a Chamaecyparis pisifera called baby blue ice. And it was a sport of one called baby blue, and that was a sport of one called Blue Boulevard, which we've had in the trade for a long, long time. So this is just a dwarf version of those. It has great blue coloration. Actually shooting this video here in December between Christmas and New Year's. It's really soft to the touch, really interesting habit. Dwarf conifer, but you know, these plants don't read the tags on them, so you know, even dwarf conifers over time will continue to grow. So you may see a tag on this anywhere between 3 to 4 feet in height and 4 to 6 feet in height, but ultimately it's probably going to continue to grow through that in time. They tend to do slow down a bit. I really love the soft texture of this plant. I mean, once you touch it, you're like, holy moly. It really great ornamental plant. You can see the natural pyramidal habit that this one has. We're shooting this down at my buddy Jason Stevens down at Superior Plants. He grows some really unique, interesting things, but you can see without really any shearing, this is how it's naturally going to grow. And again, you'll see heights up to 9 feet or something like that, and down to 3 feet on this plant. And I think they're all accurate. Okay, you could probably keep this thing sheared, you know, something like that. We'll talk about that a little more later in the video. These are hardy in zone 4 to 8. I think if you're in zone 8 areas down in the southeast, you start to think about putting this in a little bit of, tiny bit of shade, you know, toward zone 8. And as you move up in colder and colder areas up into zone 4, definitely going to be a plant that will take full sun and really require full sun. One thing I'll say on these boulevard cypresses is that, see how this looks, and I don't care whether it's your regular blue boulevard or any of the other sports or named Chamaecyparis pisiferas out there on the market. They're, you know, conifers, I've said this many times, are not great at telling us when they're dry, and in really dry conditions where don't have additional water in the future, they can really thin out in time. So this is a plant that's being well irrigated, and it has plenty of space, so nothing's crowding up against it, and it's growing perfect like this. You put this in the ground, you go 3-4 years without really thinking about it, without really maintaining it, and what you'll see is a thinning of this in time as it gets taller in the garden. So this is a plant that I consider very low maintenance, but it's not a plant that I kind of trust to grow and look like this on its own without watering it during abnormally dry times. You can actually see a little bit of that browning interior inside of these, even highly maintained. So keep that in mind. You will get some of that browning in the center of them, especially in time. So where we're going to use this plant, it's definitely going to be a great container plant. And a lot of times we'll buy small conifers like this and we'll use them as a container plant for a year or two, and then we'll transition it into the ground later. And so with this narrow upright habit, it's going to be perfect for a corner foundation piece. It's going to be great as just a specimen plant, just a one-off, a low border. So if you had a patio where you wanted to have a 3 or 4 foot tall screen around it where you're sitting, it's slightly private, but then you can stand up and see across it. That would be a good use for that. It can be topiaried, can definitely be limbed up in time, and you can create interesting things out of it. Great for a rock garden. And we tend to use these conifers in our perennial borders because in the winter time when the perennials have gone dormant, this is the thing that's going to stand out in the garden. They definitely need well-drained soil. That's true with most conifers, not all, but most conifers. Slightly acidic soil is best. Even moisture, kind of ideal, again, for these conifers that aren't going to tell you when they're dry. Keeping them kind of evenly moist is overall ideal. And then shelter them from really dry winds. So this is not going to be one that you're going to put out on the edge of your property if you're in an open, super windy field somewhere, because that's probably going to cause some desiccation on them where the ground may freeze and they can't get water up into the top, and they're going to brown on that windy side. So overall, this is a very low maintenance plant. You can prune it as you need to. You may get a limb that sticks out further out on the side than something else. You can cut that off anytime. If you were going to do any general pruning on it, I think it would be in the late winter, early spring. I don't want to cut all the foliage off of it at one time. You know, well-established older plant, you may be able to get away with that, really going after it super hard. But for me, I'd like to just like lightly shear it occasionally if I wanted to keep it more condensed and more compact. And again, I'd do that in the late winter or early spring. We fertilize the entire garden in the late winter with an organic fertilizer once a year. That's all this thing's gonna need. Need to just keep it moist. You know, in abnormally dry times, this is a plant that you're gonna want to address. And we'll keep the area mulched, water it in well when you plant it, readdress it when it's dry, and that's kind of it. It's really a super low maintenance plant that can really add a lot of impact. It's not prickly. You know, a lot of other conifers that you'll add to your garden like this, you know, can be a prickly beast. This one's incredibly soft, adds this blue hue, you know, to the garden, which is, you know, I really love. We love the chartreuse colors, blue colors, where we can get foliage color to almost act as a flower color. And this does that in a year-round way. So Steph really wants one of these, and I think she'll be carrying one of these out today as we're filming it. So this is Chamaecyparis pisifera baby blue ice. Thanks for watching.